Hi everyone, Matt Guy here. Stu and Andy are on a brief hiatus this week, which gives me perfect opportunity to start a new episodical, if you will, feature that we're doing on the show, which is a deep dive into the cinema industry, touching on how the pandemic has affected the industry and what it means to different entities, from big corporation and corporate cinemas to independent cinemas, and how it's affected everybody in between. I'm delighted to say I was joined by Kelly from the Lighthouse Cinema in Wolverhampton, a cause very, very close to my heart. As you'll hear in the interview, spent a lot, and I mean a lot, of drunken memories in the Lighthouse when it used to be an indie nightclub on a Friday night, and then studied uni there. And we talked about the industry and how coronavirus has affected how they operate, and a history of what they do and what they bring to the community of Wolverhampton, something I'm very, very passionate about. So we hope you enjoy it. It's a good listen, to be fair. She was really, really knowledgeable, and obviously has a lot of passion about the industry and film in general. So I hope you enjoy it. If you want to know more, the Lighthouse has a fantastic website that you can go and visit on as well. I'm going to see Pig at time of recording tonight, for the first time in the cinema setting, which is going to be fantastic. So really looking forward to it. So I hope you enjoyed this little break from your usual scheduled programming, and let us know on Twitter at Cage Fighting Pod what you think about this format, and if you enjoy it, and if you want to hear more. But anyway, for now, I hope you enjoy it. Hi everyone, I'm here with Kelly Jeffs from Lighthouse Cinema. Kelly, thank you very, very, very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for inviting me, Matt. It's really good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's something we have to do first. With every single guest, we go through the same 3 questions, kind of a measuring and feeling out process, if you will. So my first question to you: what is your favourite Nick Cage film?
Right, well, this may surprise you.
Go on.
But I haven't really watched many Nicolas Cage films.
That doesn't surprise me.
Well, okay.
With some of the ones that we've watched.
So the one that I really liked has always stuck with me, and it was a bit of one of those where it's like a rites of passage kind of thing. So it was 1991. I was at uni and we hired it from Blockbuster.
Okay.
And it's called Zanderley.
Okay.
And it's Nick Cage, obviously, playing a tormented artist that's not doing too well. And Judge Reinhold, do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
I can't remember the woman's name. She's very pretty and, sultry and alluring. And she's married to Judge Reinhold, and he ends up getting a job in New Orleans as a heat wave. And he's a poet originally, but I think he gets sort of a number crunching job, something that's to damaging his whole reason for being. And then he bumps into his old mate Nicolas Cage, and I would imagine you can imagine what happens next. The bored housewife who has lost her poet husband.
Oh, I see.
He's slightly magnetised towards, well, slightly is an understatement, towards Nicolas Cage. And it's very, 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 I remember it being, as I said, I remember it being like, erotic, but in a way that I'd never kind of seen before. I wasn't a child then.
Yeah.
I was a grown woman, but it was like, oh, this is interesting. Yeah. Anyway, so there's an interesting scene in his art studio with cocaine and olive oil.
Cool.
I won't say anything else. So have I sold it to you?
Absolutely. I'm going to nip to Sainsbury's and then nip to see somebody else, just in case I want to recreate.
But that's to be fair, that's the only one that really sticks out in my mind. I may have seen other ones, but I just can't remember them.
No, that's great.
He's not someone I actively seek out however, I am looking forward to Pig. So
yes, yeah, and I'm sure we'll discuss that a little bit more a little later. But question number 2, what is your favourite cinema snack?
Well, I'm not a big believer in snacking in cinemas. Hence, running an independent cinema, it's not something that, even though we need to sell the concessions as secondary spend, we don't push things in a way. What I tend to do is I like something savoury and I like something sweet, but what I do is I transfer them into cups.
Okay.
So that I become a silent muncher. So things like minstrels for sweets, or I don't know, something like soft, like what's it, something that won't make too much of a noise. But that's and I try and share that sort of hack with people.
Mm-hmm.
So just transfer that into a cup. Here's a cup, and you won't be rattling around or and spoiling it.
Yeah, Andy from this podcast, he despises food in the cinema of any variety, and a few of our listeners are the same way in that it does take away sometimes from the ambience when you've got someone chomping to high heaven next to you. It takes away from the feel of the experience.
And you're right. I think one of the reasons why people like to come to the cinema that I run is because that's not the be all and end all.
Yeah.
In fact, the thing about us is that people come because they like to take a glass of wine or a beer into the screen, which is always it always seems very civilized, and people say, "Oh, can you take a drinking?" Yeah, so that's always more of an attraction rather than the chomping, the nachos and stinking hot dogs and even popcorn. We sell popcorn, but we don't make a massive deal out of it. We just happen to, we have it and we say, right, that's the size of it. It's very small, and there you go. If you want it, you want it. If you don't, you don't.
Brilliant. And the third and final question: if you can only watch one film for the rest of your life, what are you watching?
Well, I'm afraid it's Love Actually.
Okay, hey, listen, we have had some much worse suggestions in the past. So
it's such an impossible question, but that is the one that it's a go-to, and it's always because it's got such a breadth of characters as well, and there's always the little scene with Hugh Grant doing his dance, which I always think is really funny, and the heartbreaking thing. It doesn't matter how many times I watch it, Emma Thompson makes me cry in that scene.
Yeah.
When she realises what's going on. I want to stab the girl in the face who horrible girl from The Office. I want to sleep with the guy who Laura Lynn is in love with, that she can't get it together with him. There's plenty to keep you going. Actually.
I've got no issue on that front, to be fair.
Yeah. So and it's, I don't know, it's just got that charm, hasn't it? So.
I do have a bonus fourth question to put you on the spot. It's something that has split the podcast down the middle in the last week or so. Where do you lie on Dirty Dancing?
Do you know what? I don't mind Dirty Dancing. It's not a film that I'd switch off when it popped up. But I just don't. I was never really that into it. But I know that I think it's quite a good. I think it's all right quality as a film. It's not cringy.
No.
And it raised some, issues that are questionable. In terms of the story, the narrative. But I think I'm indifferent. I don't dislike it. I don't love it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're pretty much along the same line as me, really. When the other two were arguing to high heaven about it, I was very, very neutral, very Switzerland about it. So I didn't really stress either way about it. Well, we're here to discuss the wonderful Lighthouse Cinema today and have a kind of a discussion around how coronavirus has affected you guys, yourself, and the industry. As you touched on before, you run the Lighthouse in Wolverhampton. For anybody that doesn't know the Lighthouse, if you're from Wolverhampton, you know it. But if for people that aren't from Wolverhampton or some of our friends and listeners from abroad, do you want to just give us a brief overview of what the Lighthouse is?
Yeah, well, this the backstory really is it started as a small community film project in the mid-80s. The couple of pioneers, really, people that wrote film studies for the University of Wolverhampton, And it was at the back room of the art gallery, and it was for real cinephiles, real niche film fans, classics and film studies and all that side of, that kind of ilk. And then in the late 80s, the building itself is an old Victorian lock factory, and it's a stunning piece of architecture. It's at the gateway of the city. And it was derelict from the 60s. It was the Chubb lock factory. The Chubb locks you get from all over the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was shut down, and as the things started to change in the industry, and it was just derelict for many, many years. And then what was then at that point the Polytechnic of Wolverhampton, and then the council and the European Regional Development Fund, along with private landlords, Midlands Industrial Association. It was a massive capital project, and it was really pioneering at the time. This is way before my time, but it was pioneering because the whole aim of it was a purpose-built, added-on block that was with the cinema screens, and then blended into it's almost what's it called? Punk. Steampunk style.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. So you've got your industrial girders and wood and scrape back walls, and it's just a stunning building. And the reason why I was saying it was pioneering is because it was the whole aim of it was to attract creative businesses all in the one building, to create what we call the cultural critical mass and all those buzzwords that we still hear now. That was happening in the 80s, So it was a real kind of exemplar of that sort of idea. And as time wore on, the independent cinema side to it grew and grew. And parallel to what we were doing with the cinema side, we were running training courses. We were very innovative. We were like a finishing school for unemployed graduates. There's so many people out there in the sector that 6 degrees of separation to Lighthouse from their training days. They're all over the world working, freelancers, scriptwriters, animators, all sorts. It's, there's a real good track record of how we've supported people. The independent cinema side to it ebbed and flowed, and and then when the multiplex opened in the mid-90s, which is about 2 miles down the road, it totally killed Lighthouse, and we actually physically closed as a cinema for a bit. And then we managed to, obviously, then I joined in 99, so I've just done my 22nd year there.
Wow, congratulations.
I know, it's been a real journey, and it's not an easy journey, but it's almost become it is a labour of love. But in terms of it turning around back into an independent cinema and operating again, we just gradually grew. We were open, very scaled back, and then right up until 2019, December 2019, we had record-breaking ticket sales, and then obviously it all went wrong.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what we're really keen to discuss today. I mean, the Lighthouse for me holds a really special place in my heart personally, because not only did I study film at the University of Wolverhampton, so I was in the Lighthouse all the time for like lectures and screenings, and it signified a period in my life where, because I used to go to Light Bar as well, the night that they put on a Friday night. So this place was just everything that was special to me in one building. And I'm really, really fond memories of being there, like, for uni, for nights out, and it being a kind of a cultural hub for me. And the building, like you say, is absolutely stunning. A friend of mine was there only last weekend and was showing me pictures of the roof and just how iconic that building is. And I would hate to think that people don't know the history of it, and that's hopefully what we can do a little bit of as well, is give that to the masses. And one thing that really strikes me about the building and the cinema, it's a real people's project. Like, from people that we speak to, the staff are super engaged with the customers, and and it's a real family feel to it, something that you lose in translation when you're at these mass corporate, cinemas. And I'm really, really, really glad that you've been able to, to join us to talk us through it. In terms of, you mentioned that there have been darker times where you've struggled. You are part of a charity organisation as well, I understand.
Yeah.
How does that work in terms of kind of funding? Do you get support from the council, or do you get support from, like things like the National Lottery or things like that at all?
Well, trust me, we've in the heyday, I suppose from the early 2000s, we were involved. There was about 52 staff at one point. Now there's 15 of us.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how things have changed and retracted, and the journey of the struggle is real, and we became a charity in 2012, and our charitable objectives is really what we've always done, which is giving access to affordable or free cultural activity where possible. So at one point, I mentioned when the capital investment happened, it was ERDF money, European Regional Development Fund, and obviously all that's gone out the window now. But we had a lot of different projects that was funded by Heritage Lottery, National Lottery, ESF, European Social Fund, which is I managed a couple of £1 million worth of projects over the years. And when I say heyday, what I mean is that was when there was a real appetite for skills development. The creative industries was being seen as it was they kept harping on it was the second biggest GDP income generator for the country, and it's gone even it's developed and as they said it would, and so we were part of that. And then government decisions changed. Austerity came into the equation. We had a huge revenue cut that helped to keep our that used to uplift our overhead, help with overheads. So that would enable us to take risks on things and bring in programs of film, programs of artwork, all sorts of different things that would enable us to be again. Achieve our charitable objectives of giving access to stuff to people in the city in a very difficult city.
What
I mean by that, is that you have the culturally engaged already, are usually, as you would expect, white middle class retired professionals or people who work in education or culture itself. It's like an ecology of its own, and we've always strived to try and attract diverse groups, and we achieve that in a way. Pulling that revenue funding from us basically created this funding gap that we had to try and fill with ticket sales, donations, sponsorship, but still on a real scale back workforce. So it's a real struggle. And I always feel like I'm navel gazing and think, moaning and whining. But when I think about the things that we achieve through that struggle, it just makes it worthwhile. And that, we've got literally thousands and thousands of things that we've done over the years and engaged with.
No, that's brilliant. And I mean, it leads on to my next question, really. And you've raised a lot of it already, is kind of why should someone, not everybody's going to be able to go to lovely Wolverhampton, but why should somebody choose an independent cinema over a chain? So, I mean, for me, number one would straight away be you are going to get some more niche films out there, or films that are more culturally engaged, but perhaps not as popular from a blockbuster point of view. Pig being a prime example of that. I literally jumped for joy when I saw your tweet and your article about showing it, and I think I must have been one of the first to book, because I was literally on the phone straight away. Like, get my tickets. Why, in your opinion, should someone choose an independent cinema? Would you say over a 15 screen behemoth?
Well, I don't have anything against multiplex, and everybody's got their own business models and their own agendas as such, and we all understand that people have their own tastes and their own ideas, and people, especially with younger people, that's a whole difficult nut to crack these days. What I always say is, I think there's been perceptions, misperceptions in the past of from Lighthouse's point of view, that we're exclusive, that we're, they show those quirky art films that nobody understands, or they only show French stuff there, or and it's absolutely nothing like that at all. Over the last, say, 8 years, we've had to blend in mainstream, crossover titles, but films are getting more sophisticated in themselves anyway. You've got your quality independent that bring in the masses. So most of the time, those films bring in an older demographic. And we try to, I don't like to say, I say cradle to grave, because we do cater for all sorts of age groups and diversity and everything. And that's what makes it exciting, because you don't know what you're going to see from one week to the next, and we do follow a pattern of, there's always the expectation of certain films that that will be at Lighthouse. But the reason why I think people like to come to us is because we have conversations. We have conversations. We create a hum of discussion, whether that be on social media. It's getting stronger, I think. But in person, if I'm around, I'll chat to whoever's coming through the door and engage with them, talk to them about what did they think of it, or what's coming up, and I'll know those customers and say, did you know we've got this coming up, and have you seen this? I get emails every week from people, random people I might not be able to know. I don't know who they are. I know them if I saw them, but I don't know their names. They'll email me and say, they'll thank me. No, I don't know anyone that would thank a multiplex for what they've done.
I understand that.
But this is the and I think it's that we offer a safe space. We offer a sort of, it's just a bit more personable. But sometimes that sort of bites us in the backside.
Okay.
The expectations can be quite high. And, why aren't you showing that one? For example, well, we've only got 2 screens for a start, and, there's a lot of content to put on. So disappointed that I could only come Tuesday, and that's the night you have subtitles. And that spoils it for me. And then I hopefully try and explain, well, we are proud of our accessible screenings, but we can't be everything to everybody all the time.
No, of course not.
So being accessible and personable, and it can sometimes feels like we spoil them a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that. But I mean, to turn that on its head, I mean, fans of our podcast have said, multiple times about how they've taken their children for the first time, and it's intimidating. This big space and other people, especially coming out of a pandemic where a lot of children, this is their first time around people in 2 years, and they might have been only 2-3 years old when they started the pandemic, and now they're 5, 6 and coming out and seeing masses, for their first time in their memory. I think the way that you guys operate and the way that your mantra is very much about welcoming people in to enjoy the experience of being there, not necessarily just the film that you're showing. And that's something that I think is really, really, really important, and something that I think a lot of people, when they experience it for the first time, don't realize that's what they needed. And I think it's I'm guessing what is a bit difficult for you guys is getting people there for the first time, because I think once people go and they appreciate what they have there and the beautiful building and everything that comes with it, it becomes more of an attractive prospect.
I mean, what I've been doing myself and encouraging other members of the team to do since we've reopened is to, if people have been rocking up at the door to see I've taken them into the cinema. They're not under any obligation to buy a ticket. Let me show you what we've done so you can see how it works. We've had some new families coming in over the summer holidays, and there's been mums and dads who have said, let me show the children where this film's going to be screened.
Yeah.
They're a bit, as you said, they're a bit nervous. One family came in where one of the little girls was hysterical and they took her out again. I said, come on, I'll show you the screen. And then I said to the mum, if it doesn't work out, come back another day. We'll honour the ticket. Just go in and try it, And she was so grateful. And the little girl was absolutely fine, And I think it's giving them that sense of belonging and, this is for everybody, and so that's been working quite well. With some of the older customers, they've come to the door, they've had a look what's going on. It's lovely to see them. They're happy to see us again. Everybody's been saying we were so afraid that you weren't going to open again, and that feeling of it was worth it, that stress and the awful journey we went through is all worth it when I hear those words.
Yeah, well, you tied me in very, very nicely for my next point, and that is around coronavirus and the pandemic and what that's done. So on a wider scale, not necessarily just with yourselves, what when the pandemic started and then bit by bit we were drip fed more information, and then we got to lockdown in, I think it was the April maybe. What was going through your mind about A, your cinema, and B, the industry in general? Because for the longest time, the arts were very much left in the dark and left to fend for themselves. Kind of what was going through your mind in like the initial first few months?
Well, we closed on the 20th of March. So it was before April, and when he said everybody stay at home. And I remember we sent everybody home. We put closure into place operationally. We threw a ruckload of No Time to Die flyers into the skip.
Wow.
On film. We just had the delivery of our April programme to be mailed out. Boxes were just left. It was literally like Chernobyl, we just left.
Last one, turn the light out, yeah.
Yeah, we cleaned everything up. We emptied the fridges, and I remember standing in the courtyard with a sweeping brush, just doing a last sweep, looking around and thinking, I would never in a million years thought it would be 16 months later that we reopened again.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, this is weird, And so as time wore on and we could sense that there was no scope for reopening, we were all furloughed, and myself and two colleagues, we were like flexible furloughed so we could keep the slumber going in the background. And with my trustees as well, they were amazing. Everything that I said to them, you need to do this on my behalf, or they just got on with it. But meanwhile, in the background, I'm looking for funding. And trying to. We had a fantastic crowdfunder in the summer of lockdown. We tried to keep in touch with customers as best we could. But it was very difficult because we were closed, and it was difficult. We were not even working, we were in a fragmented way, so we couldn't access anything.
Yeah.
It was just a really, really awkward situation. And so I'm just constantly thinking, there's no way we're going to reopen again now.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the death, the last nail. And then, we were, as you said, we were drip fed, and that drip feeding, came in fits and starts, obviously. And so we just, managed the situation week to week.
Yeah.
One of the interesting things that happened for me, two things. For me personally, I was contacted by press nationally.
Okay.
On a regular basis to give, and I was thinking, am I the only person that can comment on cinema at this point? And it felt like, I did so much press. It was really interesting, and it felt like that I got Lighthouse sort of on the national map. and that people were realising, oh, that's an interesting cinema in Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
You know, it was almost like nationally we were better known than locally at that point. So that was interesting. That it enabled me to kind of make our mark a little bit more nationally.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was interesting. And then the whole funding side of it was just one of the most stressful things I've ever been through in my professional life. There was a lot, you know, hinging on getting this cultural recovery fund, and we were rejected. And we were rejected by obviously being counters that weren't interested in rhetoric, or they weren't interested in what you did. Really, the things that we do for community, and the things that we achieve that are totally aligned with the BFI objectives. But because we were in that hole that I mentioned earlier, they didn't like that. But we've still reopened.
So what was that like then on the build up, and so the world starts to open up again, and what, you know, we're doing the okie dokie really, because 1 minute we're in, 1 minute we're out, and then but things start to open up and the world starts to, the cogs start to turn. What's going through your mind during that time? Are you thinking to yourself, is it too risky to try a reopening, or was it a case of you had to strike while the iron was hot?
Yeah, we just said, right, this is it. Let's set a date and let's do it. And we didn't open right on the time that the government said that we could. So it wasn't that simple. You can't just go in, switch the projectors back on, and you've got to reignite relationships with suppliers. We didn't have a phone number for the first 6 weeks of opening because we lost our old phone number because we hadn't been active for 16 months, and they just sort of gave up on us. So that restricted. We reopened in a heat wave. We reopened in the middle of an international football tournament, that then went into Wimbledon, that then went into the Olympics. And summer's the worst time for cinema anyway in terms of ticket sales. We all know that in the sector and the industry. So we were up against challenges, and we got a pot of money that had been, we tried to sort of manage that to have something to cushion us for a few months. But that money doesn't last forever.
No.
And the sort of speed and the trajectory that we're going with ticket sales, it's slow, it's happening, it's going up, and it's become, but it's very, very slow.
Yeah.
So we've got to have a very steady hand now for the next few months to see. And there may be a turning point, I'm hoping, when James Bond opens. There's some big stuff coming down the line, plenty of good quality content, and the theatre stuff, but we've got a strong following for the National Theatre Live and the streaming stuff. That's always a good seller for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's something I really wanted to talk about with you, because I think coronavirus and the pandemic is forcing the hand, I think, of the industry to look at itself and think, okay, well, we may need to make changes now in the way that we operate and the content that we provide. And things like esports, for example, is the next big thing, and that's all anyone's talking about. And for Wolverhampton itself, and for followers of the football club, we've just signed a big deal as an esport provider, and then your relationship with the theatre. And in recent years, I've seen gigs at a cinema and festival events and things like that. And then you've got kind of other avenues as well, like online festivals. That's something that I know you're really passionate about, and I think you're going to have a hand in as well soon. Is that right?
In terms of the Wolverhampton Film Festival, we're that's sort of in it's past embryonic now. We've got a action plan, and so that's exciting to start thinking about trying to get something going that will go on and on and on, like the Deaf Festival that we do, which is an international. I mean, we aren't the curators of Deaf Festival. We host it with the partners, and it's such a brilliant thing to be part of. That's we're going to be doing our 16th one.
Wow.
And we're involved with the Wolverhampton Literature Festival. We're involved with Wolverhampton Comedy Festival. We're involved with Arts Fest that the university run. And we're going to be part of the British Art Show in early 2022 with the university, in partnership with the Hayward Gallery. So we've got all these things that we're involved with, just because it works.
Yeah. Do you think that the industry, if maybe reluctantly, has got to move into looking at other avenues of performance, such as esports or the theatre or music, as a secondary or third kind of product that it can provide for people? Do you think that's the way it's going to go in the future? Are people phasing out of seeing the cinema as purely to watch film?
I think in a way, yes. But what you have to remember is that there's only so many hours in the week, only so many screens. So, if you're thinking of a small place like us, like I said earlier, I believe our programme is jam-packed. I on average, we show about 13 films a month.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, but we started plumping the programme up again because we opened the second screen and trying to maximise and exploit what we've got. So you have to be careful that you don't sort of dilute by having too much on offer, because again, back to the point of the demographic that we're engaged with. People have only got so much money to spend on certain,
Yeah.
The theatre side to it's interesting because we, again, pride ourselves in being able to say we're offering the Met Opera from New York, the Sydney Harbour Opera House and all that, and this is like the creme de la creme of global theatre.
Yeah.
And it's piped through in a Wolverhampton, city centre.
Yeah.
And so that stuff was just off the scale before, as an integral part of the programming. Diversifying into things like esports or possibly gaming, gaming tournaments, all that sort of thing. There's a place for it, yeah. There's a place for it, but you just have to be careful that you don't offer too much and then it's spread too thinly.
That's absolutely fair. And I think that you don't want to mend something that's not broken. If you've got a core product that people enjoy, you want to be able to maximize that as much as possible. To flip it the other way, then, I mean, we mentioned at the very start about food being kind of the bane of the cinema experience, but you did mention obviously about the bar as well and people being able to take a drink. Now that's really, for me, it sounds bizarre that it should be so niche to be able to take a beer or take a glass of wine in, but that makes that experience, for me, perhaps worryingly so, that much more enjoyable. To be able to do that, and it's great that you can do that. And I think that that's something that's been missing for a lot of people, because rightly or wrongly, people enjoy a drink when they're enjoying their hobbies, and it's great that you can do that and go out into the courtyard afterwards and have a drink and that kind of thing. That must be really popular.
It is, yeah. It's, we get to know regulars, we get to know their drinks orders, especially with the theatre stuff. We always know the bar's going to be I think it's on another level with the theatre audience, because they have their pre-theatre drinks and they have their interval drinks and then they'll have another drink to take. So you know that you're going to make a bit of an income uplift from the theatre stuff. But but on the other side of this, we're talking to the university at the moment, about accommodating a regular Muslim group from the university, mature student group, are looking for, again, a space where they feel comfortable, but, no alcohol. And that we can adapt to that. That's something that I'm more than happy, just to sort of break off that space and then they use a different space. And it's, because what I'm interested in, I don't care if someone wants a glass of wine or a glass of water. I want them to know what film offers are there for them to think about, well, we can go and have a, what's this place?
Mm-hmm.
You know, every way is everything engagement, every engagement activity that we do, for me, is to get those people in front of the films.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the important thing, isn't it? I mean, we are a film and TV kind of podcast, and we, whilst trying to do it in a kind of a jovial way as possible, the core thing is there. We want people to see good film and TV, and you know, and to do that in a setting, you know, films in the cinema for us, it's very much a purity kind of thing. It's made for that environment, and you can't get that same experience. So platforms like Disney Plus, for example, that are showing Black Widow. Mm-hmm. For me, the price of a cinema ticket is the price of a cinema ticket. You can argue it's high, you can argue it's not, but I would never pay that to watch it at home in my surroundings. I love my living room and I like my TV and I've got a surround sound system, but it's the experience of getting up and going to a cinema that makes it. And I hope that isn't lost on people these days.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, you know, a lot of people out of the pandemic as well just want to stay at home, or they just want to be in their comfort, or they're nervous about being around the general public, or are waiting to be jabbed twice before they'll want to venture out. And I hope for you guys that the tide has turned now that the world is opening up a little more, and, you know, vaccines are readily available at time of recording, and that it all goes in the right direction.
Well, we hope so, but also the interesting thing about consuming stuff on platforms. I mean, we were having this discussion 2012, 2013 at Euro, what are they called? This the European conferences, cinema conference, you know, talking about the threat of video on demand and films being released same day and all that sort of thing. So it's been slowly coming up behind us. We've always known that was going to be. And obviously the pandemic accelerated that a lot. But, you know, we were having a discussion the other week about certain films that if they'd have gone straight onto platforms, they would have been lost. The one film that came to my mind was Bait, which was, I thought it was a spectacular film. You know, again, it is on the niche side of, you know, the indie kind of niche, quirky art house kind of thing. But the point I'm making is if that had gone straight to a platform, it would have just been totally lost. Now, because that got pushed a lot with the BFI, and independent cinemas pushed it a lot, and obviously the Southwest, because of it being its Cornwall connection and Bristol and all that, you know, the West Country, it was really celebrated. And I'm hoping that it's been a springboard for the director to do something, you know, something else. And if that had just gone straight to Netflix or whatever, it wouldn't have had any cachet or anything. It would have just been, oh, what's this? You would have just skimmed through it. You know,
that's the danger.
I'm choosing that as an example. And there's so again, it's back to that thing of dilution. You know, it's a difficult one.
Be lost in a sea of other content, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So before we kind of wrap up, if people are listening to this and they want to experience Lighthouse for the first time, or they want to support or know more, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Well, our website is light-house.co.uk. But we programme fortnightly at the moment because we've had to come back into things slowly but surely. We used to programme monthly. So you can get everything's on the website. You can follow us on Facebook, Lighthouse Cinema and Cafe Bar. You can follow us on Twitter at Lighthouse Media, and the same on Instagram. We haven't got a TikTok account yet, but we're working on that. I'm far too old to do it myself, but I'm not saying I couldn't do it. It's just I feel like I shouldn't be doing it.
I tried to edit a video on TikTok the other day, and it was just a mess. And I feel pretty confident with technology, but I couldn't get my head around it. It was filters were here. I think I had a unicorn corn there. It was going all over the place.
Oh no. So we are going to hopefully engage with some of the younger demographic to help us with that. And there's a couple of students from Birmingham City University that are hopefully going to be helping us along with that.
Yeah.
And obviously you can phone us. You can book tickets over the phone. You can book online. You can engage with us as a donor through localgiving.org, if you wanted to donate to us to the, you know, as a charity. We're always open to suggestions, and we like critical friends. I'm always open to people who are local filmmakers or people that want to showcase stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk to them about that, if that, you know, that opportunity. And obviously we can be hired as a venue. We have like a cafe bar, and we have we've got a wedding in a couple of weeks. We have, you know, small acoustic music nights. We have poetry and literature stuff, exhibition space. There's so much that goes on, you know, peripheral to the cinema.
Yeah, and I think that's the overriding kind of message, really. Something that even to me is something I wasn't so aware that you did so much that wasn't just cinema. So that's hopefully other people will feel the same and actually go, I might check that out, because that's something I didn't realize even existed as a, you know, as a medium, which is great. In terms of kind of what you are looking forward to going forward, in terms of like listings over the next kind of 2 weeks to a month, I also understand that are you going to the Toronto Film Festival? Are you? Talk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, sadly, I can't physically go.
Yeah, of course.
My plan was, I went in 2016, and the plan was to go in 2021 again, and that was next week. That's not going to happen. But I'm very lucky enough to be able to be on part of the online press industry access. So I'm just working through my schedule at the moment for next. It starts Thursday for 7, 8, 9 days. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, this is my first proper online festival. It was online last year, mm-hmm. and there was a lot of issues with the Cannes Film Festival, for example. There are a lot of issues with geo-blocking,
of course,
which I'd never even heard that term until a few weeks ago. So, but I didn't know what a lanyard was until I was 40. I didn't know they were called lanyards. So, you know, I'm learning every day. But in terms of Toronto, I've been through the schedule. They have the gala presentations of the films that you would expect. So you've got the new Dan Campion film, not available, mm-hmm. sadly to us. You got the new the Chinese director, Zhang Yimou, not available. Mm-hmm. We've got Belfast, the new Kenneth Branagh, not available.
Yeah, it's just a shame.
So we've got Spencer, the new Diana film that's had rave reviews at Venice, not available. I could go on. However, you know, there's 40 odd other films I'm going to be working my way through, reduce them down, look at the ones that I think will be suitable for Lighthouse, look at a few that I'll personally want to see. Mm-hmm. The Guilty's one, Jake Gyllenhaal's new one.
Oh, yeah.
And there's Lakewood, which is the actress's name got out of my head. No, I can't think of a name.
That's okay. You'll do well. You'll do well on our podcast. To be fair, we're always frantically googling away when we're mid podcast.
But the one that I'm most looking forward to, and I'll end on this one, is Benediction, which is Peter Capaldi's new film.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I'm interested in seeing that is because a lot of it was shot in the Midlands.
Okay, nice.
They used Bantop Park. They used Sutton Coldfield Town Hall. And they filmed in a personal friend of mine's house.
Oh, wow.
My friend Stephen, who's got a Victorian old GP surgery just around the corner from where I live.
Okay, wow.
Peter Capaldi was there. So that's the film that's based on the life of Siegfried Sassoon, the war poet.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, so I'm hoping, should be seeing that at Toronto. But yeah, again, it's back to that point of hybrid festivals, will that be the future? Or in person again? Who knows how it's going to pan out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to kind of wrap up where we began and why we do this podcast. So half of what we do is going through the entire Nick Cage catalogue to determine whether he is either a good or a bad actor. That is half of the battle that we do, and then we talk more generally on other episodes. So you're showing Pig very very soon.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll see it after the festival, perhaps when you've got a bit more time on your hands. A really wonderful, poignant, soul-crushing in parts drama that, if you looked at just the trailer, you'd think it was John Wick, and it's really not. It's really not at all. And I'm really looking forward, and I'm really appreciative of you guys showing it, because I thought I was going to have to venture to maybe Leicester, or I think like it was quite, there wasn't at one point there wasn't a screening for 50 miles or so. So it's really, really great that you guys are doing that, and thank you for coming on. It's been really good to speak to somebody in the industry and kind of understand how the pandemic has affected you, and hopefully, fingers crossed, things are moving in the right direction, and people are going to flock to the Lighthouse again. So thank you very much for coming on.
That's my pleasure. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. That was the first of our cinema industry deep dives. I really, really hope you enjoyed it. It's not something that we would usually do, and it's a bit of a break from the norm, and possibly a little bit more serious than we would normally do. And Stu wasn't here to tell us a horrendous story about some kind of sexual faux pas. Faux pas. Well, there we go. I've done it myself now. Anyway. You know where to find us. Cage Fighting Pod on Twitter. Send us an email at cagefightingpod@gmail.com as well. We'd love to know your feedback. For anybody that's listened to this for the first time on the back of coming from the Lighthouse, welcome. First of all, we do a kind of split the podcast into two, really, where we will review Nick Cage films to answer the biggest question in cinema history: is Nick Cage a good or bad actor? And then we also answer the big questions in film and question each other each week on pretty much anything to do with film. One of the highlights of the show so far has been discussing our favourite movie, Chicken. So you can kind of get an idea of the kind of stuff that we talk about on the podcast. But it's been a delight to have everybody listening. I really, really hope that we've give a bit of an insight into the industry at the Lighthouse, and hope you have a fantastic rest of the week. Take it easy, guys. Look after yourselves, and do this for the first time. Be excellent to each other.